The sense of community that once bound us together was now overshadowed by an ever-present fear. We were constantly on edge, wary of every interaction, every glance, every word spoken in public. The implementation of Sharia law brought about a profound shift in our society. What we could wear, where we could go, and how we could express ourselves were all dictated by a set of rules that seemed designed to suppress our identity. The vibrant colors and styles that once adorned our clothing were replaced by the mandated modest dress, stripping away a part of our cultural expression. How we could practice our faith, all were subject to scrutiny and restriction. Our religious gatherings, once open and joyous, had to be conducted in secrecy. The fear of being discovered loomed large, and the simple act of worship became a clandestine operation. We had to find hidden places to pray, away from prying eyes and potential informants. A climate of fear and intimidation pervaded daily life, as the threat of accusations of blasphemy or apostasy hung over us like a Damocles sword. Every conversation was measured, every action calculated to avoid suspicion. The authorities wielded their power with an iron fist, and the consequences of being accused were dire. Families were torn apart, and lives were irrevocably changed by mere allegations. Our churches, once sanctuaries of peace and hope, became targets. The places where we sought solace and strength were now under constant threat. Vandalism and attacks on our places of worship became all too common, leaving us with a sense of helplessness and despair. Some were burned to the ground, reduced to ashes by those who sought to erase our presence. The sight of a church in flames was a devastating blow to our community, a stark reminder of the hatred and intolerance we faced. Others forcibly converted into mosques, their original purpose and significance stripped away. The transformation of our sacred spaces into symbols of our oppression was a painful reality we had to endure. The joyful sound of hymns was silenced, replaced by an eerie quiet that echoed through the empty halls. The absence of our communal songs and prayers left a void that was felt deeply by all, replaced by the mournful tolling of church bells, a constant reminder of the losses we had endured and the precariousness of our existence. Each toll was a somber note in the symphony of our suffering, a testament to the resilience of our spirit in the face of relentless adversity. Section 5. The year 2000. When terror wore a familiar face. The year 2000 began with a glimmer of hope. The dawn of a new millennium was more than just a change in the calendar, it was a symbol of new beginnings, a chance to leave behind the shadows of the past and step into a brighter future. The air was filled with optimism, and the streets buzzed with the promise of progress and unity. The dawn of a new millennium brought with it promises of peace and progress, a chance for our wounded nation to heal. New construction projects sprang up, symbolizing growth and development. Community gatherings became more frequent, fostering a sense of togetherness and shared purpose. It seemed as though the nation was finally on the path to recovery, ready to embrace a future free from the scars of its turbulent past. But as the year wore on, it became clear that the demons of hatred and intolerance were far from vanquished. Beneath the surface of this newfound hope, old wounds festered, and the fragile peace began to crack. Tensions simmered in the hearts of communities, and the specter of conflict loomed ominously over the horizon. The smiles that had once graced the faces of the people began to fade, replaced by expressions of worry and fear. The trigger this time was the introduction of Sharia law in Kaduna State, a move that ignited a firestorm of protest and violence. The decision was met with fierce opposition from those who felt marginalized and threatened by the imposition of religious law. Protests erupted, and the streets of Kaduna became battlegrounds where ideologies clashed and tempers flared. Government officials struggled to maintain order, their voices drowned out by the cries of dissent. The flames of unrest, which had been smoldering beneath the surface for years, erupted with renewed fury, engulfing Kaduna and several other states in a wave of bloodshed. The violence spread like wildfire, consuming everything in its path. Buildings were set ablaze, and the air was thick with the acrid smell of smoke. People fled in terror, their lives upended by the chaos that had descended upon their once peaceful communities. Emergency responders worked tirelessly, but their efforts were often in vain against the overwhelming tide of destruction. Once again, Christians found themselves targeted, their homes and businesses looted and burned, their places of worship desecrated. The violence was not just an attack on property, it was an assault on identity and faith. Families mourned the loss of loved ones, their grief compounded by the senseless destruction of their sacred spaces. The charred remains of homes and churches stood as stark reminders of the hatred that had been unleashed. The violence was brutal, indiscriminate, and deeply personal. It tore through the fabric of society, leaving behind a trail of broken lives and shattered dreams. Injured people were helped by strangers, their wounds a testament to the brutality they had endured. Scenes of chaos and destruction were everywhere, with personal belongings scattered amidst the rubble, each item telling a story of a life disrupted. It was a chilling reminder that the hatred that had fueled the 1992 attacks was alive and well, lurking just beneath the surface of our supposedly peaceful society. The ghosts of the past had returned, haunting the present with their malevolent presence. The streets, once filled with hope, now echoed with the silence of fear and uncertainty. The somber faces of the people reflected the heavy burden of a history that refused to be forgotten, a history that continued to shape their reality in the most devastating ways.